The NFC Championship game is set as the San Francisco 49ers will host the Detroit Lions next Sunday for the right to make it to Las Vegas, Super Bowl 58. You're watching the San Francisco 49ers Report by Chat Sports. I'm Chase Sr. Let's lay the foundation for this game, give you a preview. Appreciate all of you for hanging out here with us. So the Niners able to win that thrilling roller coaster of a game against the Green Bay Packers in the NFC Divisional Round on Saturday night. And then the Detroit Lions hold off the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in the other game in the NFC here on Sunday afternoon. So that sets the stage for the NFC title game in Santa Clara at Levi's. Kickoff set for 6:30 p.m. Eastern on Sunday, 3:30 p.m. Pacific. San Francisco opening up as a 7-point favorite over Detroit, and the over-under set at more than 50. So the odds makers expecting this to be a high-scoring game between two of these potent offenses, both top 5 in the National Football League. And the good news is, after it rained throughout the entire duration of the game for Niners-Packers on Saturday, the early forecast, beautiful. 68 degrees, no rain in Northern California. This is a matchup and a tale of two vastly different organizations who have different belongings in the history of the National Football League. The 49ers, in their third straight NFC title game, fourth in 5 years that they've been in the Final Four, and San Francisco has won 5 Super Bowl championships. Detroit, on the other hand, still in search of their first Lombardi trophy and their first NFC Championship game since 1991. We did do a watch party for Lions-Buccaneers right here on the 49ers Report. Appreciate everybody who hung out with us because we wanted to scout the next opponent for the Niners. And some of the takeaways that I have from Lions-Bucks and what you can expect from Detroit, a lot offensively, that is for sure. Their offensive coordinator, Ben Johnson, heck of a play caller, probably the most sought-after head coaching candidate during this offseason. He's going to go somewhere. He's going to get paid handsomely because he's looked at as a creative and innovative offensive mind, and the Lions' offense certainly backs that up. Niners, obviously very familiar with Jared Goff, going back to his days with the Los Angeles Rams. Jeff Fisher, the head coach, he got off to a bad start under Jeff Fisher, did Jared Goff. And then he links up with Sean McVay, had some really good moments, and then in the Super Bowl really struggled against the New England Patriots, And then the Lions trade him away, former number 1 picker. The Lions trade for him, Rams trade him away, former number 1 pick, and the Rams trade for Matthew Stafford, and Jared Goff was kind of disrespected by that. And I'll tell you what, this year and last year, he has started to play some really, really good football. He likes to throw and play on schedule and in platform. He's not a guy who's going to burn you with his legs, but he does throw with a lot of touch and accuracy. And Detroit also very deep at the skill positions. 2 really good running backs, Jahmyr Gibbs, David Montgomery, and then a couple of really, really good wide receivers. Amon-Ra St. Brown is a do-it-all type of receiver that they'll utilize in motion. He can line up in the slot outside. You have your vertical burner in Jameson Williams. Josh Reynolds, a really good slot wide receiver, tight end hybrid, and Sam Laporta, a hell of a player. The rookie tight end has had a great year. So Ben Johnson, good play caller. Jared Goff playing really good at that quarterback position with a lot of weapons to utilize. As for Detroit's defense, we're about to talk about that in further detail and in further depth. They do have some holes. But what Aaron Glenn likes to do, the Lions defensive coordinator, who's up for a couple of head coaching jobs, has had multiple interviews the last couple of cycles over the last couple of years, is bring pressure. They did it all day against Baker Mayfield, especially on third down. And the Bucs kind of struggled against the blitz. 2 sacks for Detroit, and they were +2 in the turnover department. Lions defense has a lot of holes. Stay tuned to find out why. As for this Lions offense against the Bucs, this is a look as to what they can accomplish, what they bring to the table, and the threats that they do pose. Buccaneers defense, very good. Todd Bowles' defensive mind, a couple of really good players at all 3 levels, but Detroit, they accumulate 391 yards, 5.5 yards per play. Goff, 30 of 43, 277 with a couple of touchdowns. After a slow start running the football, Detroit started to establish the run. Jahmyr Gibbs got going. David Montgomery, had a couple of short yardage carries, which were important, 26 totes, 114 yards, 4.5 yards per carry. And we know that San Francisco struggled against the run against the Green Bay Packers. Turnovers, very clean there. What's the theme in Niners-Packers and Lions-Bucks? Lions +2 in the turnover department. San Francisco +2 in the turnover department as well. Both teams moving on to the final four. Time of possession, pretty even there. As the Buccaneers, I thought, did play a really good game. So with that, get those game predictions in. NFC Championship game after a shocking, thrilling win for San Francisco on Saturday night. My score prediction and my game prediction coming up here in a little while, but type DET or SF and get those predictions into the comment section right now. With clean weather, and it's going to be refreshing to see two great teams on an even playing surface, not held back because of the weather. I think this game could be an offensive shootout. And I think that the odds makers having the over-under at north of 50, I've looked at some sports books, 50, 50.5, 51 plus. That could change throughout the week. I think we're going to see a lot of scoring between two defenses who have holes and two defenses who do give up a lot of big plays, a lot of yards. And both of these offenses very creative with Ben Johnson play calling, Kyle Shanahan and his play calling. And it leads to a lot of points being scored. So I think we're going to see an offensive shootout for the right to make it to Las Vegas in Super Bowl 58. Because of that, this is going to be a big week coming up for Niners defensive coordinator Steve Wilks. He did a great job at making in-game adjustments against Green Bay. And in particular, I was very impressed with how Steve Wilks was able to make adjustments against Jordan Love in that game. Love started off hot. The Packers started off hot. They were clicking, running it, throwing it. But then in that second half, Jordan Love did not play as well. Jordan Love on the Packers' first 6 possessions against the Niners, 15 of 22, 168 yards, 2 touchdowns, no picks, and a rating of 120.3. Love on the Packers' last 4 possessions in crunch time, 6 of 12, 30 yards, no touchdowns, 2 picks, and a 16.7 rating. Wilks has been one of the best defensive coordinators in the NFL at making in-game adjustments. But Ben Johnson is going to counter with that. So which defensive mind or offensive mind is going to have the upper hand? It's going to go a long way in deciding this football game. Another look at this Lions team. I'm gushing about Ben Johnson because whichever team hires him as their head coach, they're getting a really great offensive mind in an offensive era. You have a quarterback in Jared Goff who's really confident right now with his play, but also Dan Campbell instilling confidence in him with a lot of weapons to go to. That's a dangerous combination. The Detroit Lions also have a very good offensive line, which gives Goff some clean pockets because he can't really have success if he's under siege. When you do blitz him, he can see ghosts at times. And because of that offensive line, Detroit has a very dynamic running game. And Dan Campbell is a very, very aggressive head coach who has this Lions team believing. And that's why they've had so much success this year, and that's why they've gone on this improbable run. And it's been one of the more entertaining, fun storylines to follow in the NFL during the 2023 season. Be sure to subscribe to the San Francisco 49ers Report. Our Niners-Packers watch party picked up 330,000 views on Saturday, another 100,000 views to scout the opponent for our Lions-Buccaneers watch party. We're going to go live multiple times this week, 2-hour pregame show on Sunday, multiple videos per day. Don't miss our coverage and join the 112,000 plus people who have subscribed to the program worldwide. My keys to the game and more thoughts on this NFC title bout coming up here just around the corner. But first, thank you to Prize Picks for making our Niners-Lions NFC title preview possible. The #1 and largest independently run daily fantasy sports app in North America. It's daily fantasy sports made easy. Free download at prizepicks.com/CLNS. And when you use that code CLNS, PrizePicks knows that Chat Sports sent you, but you also get a $100 deposit match, which means you put in $100, you get $100 back. You can choose more or less on 2 or more players' projected stat lines, and you can win up to 25 times your money. For instance, on Saturday night, I put down $10 and I won $30. Christian McCaffrey, more than 92.5 rushing yards. Aaron Jones, more than 69.5 rushing yards. Both of those were good. Deebo Samuel got injured in the first half. What's important, there is injury insurance for players who do go out in the first half. And because of that, $10 to win 30, prizepicks.com/CLNS. You can tell me, as producer Chip, myself, we've been providing you with winners all throughout the NFL season. Let's continue to progress forward in our preview here. Got to hit this Deebo Samuel injury update. According to NFL insider Ian Rappaport, Deebo on this Sunday getting a variety of tests done on his shoulder. And he was telling his teammates after the game that he was going to be okay. My concern here is that Deebo earlier this year, given his playing style, added to the situation of him just running with brute force, trying to run people over, lowering his helmet, lowering his shoulder. He suffered a very similar injury earlier in the year, and Kyle Shanahan compared this injury to that. And when Deebo got hurt earlier in the season with that kind of hairline fracture in his shoulder, he did miss 2 games. But with the stakes this high, is he going to try to gut it out knowing that if you get past Detroit, you have 2 weeks up until the Super Bowl? I thought the Niners really missed Deebo against the Packers. And why is that? They also missed him earlier in the year when he was out for 2 games. And a good job by Brock Purdy to make up for his absence in finding Jawan Jennings, 3rd and Jawan, spectacular and clutch once again on Saturday night. And then how about the throw to Chris Conley on that game-winning drive when Purdy went 6 for 7? But when you're without Deebo, you're without a lot of versatility at wide receiver, but also a guy who's so dynamic playing running back and who's so dynamic with the ball in his hands. Number 1 in the NFL, picking up yards after the catch since entering the league in 2019. He's also a physical ball carrier, and the team really replicates his swagger, his confidence, and his playing style. You can use him as a motion man with some of your offensive creativity, and he is a one-of-one playmaker who was a 2021 All-Pro, and at times this year, when healthy, looked every good as the player that we saw who took over the league in 2021. How Detroit stacks up on the offensive and defensive side of the football, this is a very, very good offensive unit. Now, do I think Jared Goff's going to come into Santa Clara, Levi Stadium, hostile environment, and get a dub? I do not, because I think San Francisco is a better team. But this offense is going to come to play. They were 5th in points per game at 26.9, 3rd in yards per game, 391 plus per matchup, 3rd in yards per play, 3rd down conversion rate, number 10, and in the red zone, number 2 red zone scoring offense, which means when they get inside the 20, they're scoring a touchdown nearly 66% of the time. But I speak of these defensive holes, and I teased that a little bit earlier. This isn't a great defensive team. They have some good personnel. They got back C.J. Gardner-Johnson, that's good. Aidan Hutchinson is a really good player. Cam Sutton, solid corner. Melifonwu, also a good player, but 23rd in points per game allowed, and we know that the Niners, a very good offensive team, 20th in yards per game allowed, 27th in yards per play, 10th in 3rd down percentage, 27th in red zone percentage. So whichever team really is going to be able to capitalize in the red zone and turn those trips into touchdowns, I think they end up winning this football game. And you look at those defensive numbers, that's why I come up with this. I really do believe that San Francisco has the edge against Detroit's defense. But the Niners are going to have to play better than they did against the Green Bay Packers. And it's my expectation that the Niners are going to be able to flush that game, and I would be shocked if we saw back-to-back poor performances like that from this offensive unit, from Kyle Shanahan, from this defensive unit at moments in that game. They flushed the bad one. They shook off the rust from that first-round bye. They're extremely healthy. The only injury appearing on the injury report, Deebo Samuel coming out of that Packers game, and all of that sets up well for San Francisco. More keys to a Niners win here. San Francisco cannot be as disjointed on offense and defense. Kyle Shanahan has to coach better. I thought that having Brock Purdy throw 39 times in a driving rainstorm was weird. I thought the end of the half management, game management, at the end of the second quarter, when you settled for a long Jake Moody field goal, knowing he's a little bit mentally fickle, I disagreed with that. So Kyle Shanahan has to call a better game. Brock Purdy's going to have to play a full 60 instead of just coming up clutch on that final drive, which was awesome. 6 of 7 with a couple of runs sprinkled in there. Money throw to Brandon Aiyuk. Great throw to Chris Conley. Some awesome throws to Juwan Jennings throughout that game. But this is a good Lions team that you might have to keep up with on the scoring end because they're going to be able to score a lot. You have to be able to counter. And if you have an offensive clunker, you could fall behind early in this game and you can be in a precarious position. As for Jared Goff, when you pressure him, he can get rattled. You move him off his spot, he has no mobility. He's not great at throwing on the run. And Goff loves to target the middle area of the field. That's a huge component of this Detroit offense, just like it is for San Francisco's offense. What did we see on Saturday? Fred Warner balling out, covering the middle area of the field. Dre Greenlaw, one of the best games of his career. 2 interceptions up. Jordan Love, edge there, I believe, as well. Goes to San Francisco. More keys here. Communication versus creativity. Ben Johnson, very creative offensive mind. Very creative play caller. A lot of weapons on that Lions offense as we've uncovered here during the preview. So because of that, the defensive communication, whether the Niners are playing man, they're playing zone, and they're passing weapons from one level of the defense off to the other, you have to communicate these things. And at times against Green Bay, we saw Matt LaFleur's creativity with also the pre-snap motion, with the crossing routes, diverse route trees, run game, pass game, play action. We saw this defense get caught in a bind a couple of times. Turnovers also going to be big in this game as well. With San Francisco forcing 2 takeaways against Green Bay, they are now 10-1 when they force 2 or more turnovers. They are 10-0 now when they do not turn the football over. And Detroit, obviously, +2 in the turnover department against the Buccaneers. And then the head coaching matchup is very interesting. You think of Kyle Shanahan, and yes, he's an aggressive, creative offensive mind. He can also get very conservative. Dan Campbell, otherwise known as Dan Gamble, can be very, very aggressive. And Campbell being overly aggressive or Kyle Shanahan being overly conservative in a close game could decide this football game one way or the other. A fascinating coaching matchup between the 2 head coaches on each sideline. So with that, predict the score. Detroit Lions on the road playing the San Francisco 49ers. Winner moves on to Super Bowl 58 in Las Vegas. Niners on the quest for 6. Lions on the quest for their first. My prediction, I think we do see a lot of points in this game. I've watched a lot of Lions football. I've watched every snap for the Niners this year. And I think that they flushed that bad game against Green Bay. They have more synergy. They're not as disjointed. Kyle Shanahan calls a better game. And with the better weather, Brock Purdy isn't going to have to deal with adverse weather conditions, and he's going to be able to throw the football. But I also think Detroit, against this Niners defense, which has holes, is going to be able to score it as well. Barn burner, San Francisco wins 35-30. The Niners also have the better all-around team that's deeper. I believe they're better at head coach, and they have the experience factor as well. 3rd straight NFC Championship game, 4th in the last 5 years. Our coverage this week, it is going to be phenomenal, entertaining, insightful, informative. You're going to learn. We're going to make you smarter because in turn, you make me smarter. So make sure you subscribe. What a game we have on Sunday. Can't wait for it and can't wait to talk about it all week.